Hello guys, welcome back to another episode of Chalk and Squawk. Today we're going to be discussing a really serious topic surrounding schools in America specifically, and that is violence in our schools.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner.
Okay, so something that I have been thinking about a lot recently is working with younger kids specifically, how to explain to them things like lockdowns and why we do it, why it's important, especially if it's their first time ever having to do something like that. And I don't know, it's not, I don't even know what I think about it and how open I guess I would want to be, because I don't know, I don't want to have to look at a kid and be like, there are people here who want to hurt you and that's why we want to do this. But also there's another argument of how much of the world should we sugarcoat for kids, that I've talked about a lot in classes before, so I don't know if anyone has anything.
I could add something.
Yeah.
I think it really depends on, first of all, where the student is. So, like, as more towards a city, the younger they are, the kids do know about how violent the places they live in. Like, if you were to live in a rural town that there might not be a high population, you might see less violence than you will in a city. Not even might, you will see less violence because that's just the nature of living in more impoverished-ridden areas. You're gonna see more violence, more shootings, not necessarily in the school, but around the school. And I think once kids get to a certain age, there's no reason to lie to them because it's gonna be what they're growing up in. So either their family's gonna tell them about it or they're gonna learn about it in school. Just because I know my class I'm teaching in right now, we had a lockdown while we were outside because 8 cop cars were across the street breaking up a domestic disturbance. So, like, it's just a real life thing. The kids all start happening. The best you can really do is move the kids away from the situation. But hiding something like that and, like, lying to them, I just don't think actually solves the problem, especially because it's not going anywhere, especially in today's, like, climate of the world. So...
Yeah, so I think with the sugarcoating thing, just generally speaking, one of the hardest lines to draw is what kind of conversations can you have as a teacher and what is the responsibility of the parents for what is supposed to be communicated to the kid. Because hard conversations, typically you want the parent speaking to their kid about that and allowing them to make their own decisions on what they want to communicate to their kid. The issue with school a little bit is the reality of the situation is they're going to have to practice lockdown drills at some point. So those conversations are going to have to be had. I recently had a real lockdown at my school because some issue happened in like a house really close to the school. This obviously wasn't like immediately told to the kids, but they did know that for the first time, as far as I know, in their experiences up to 4th grade, this was the first time it was like, this is a real lockdown. Something bad is happening out there and it's dangerous. A lot of times that's kind of when reality really hits for kids, it can really hit them deep because all before that, when it's like, oh, it's just a lockdown drill. Oh, we know how to do this, whatever. For a lot of the kids, it was like, oh my gosh, the world is ending. Even though there may not have actually been any threat, they were just trying to be super safe. The kids obviously don't know that. It's like, oh my gosh, I am actually in danger, and it triggers their fight or flight. And I feel really bad for them. Most kids do have thick skin, or maybe they just don't totally understand the severity of something like that. But for the ones who do understand it or are just more anxious than others, it just goes to show that all these kids handle this stress of violence very differently and potentially all need to be approached in a different way about the topic. The principal went into each class individually and had like a talk with them about what exactly happened and that they were never in any imminent danger, but they were just trying to be safe and that there's nothing to be worried about anymore. And I think he did a really good job of it. As for if maybe we should have had more conversations with them before the incident, maybe we should have. I don't know. That's a conversational topic that we could talk about. I'm not totally sure on what my opinions are of it up to this point, but it was an interesting experience, that's for sure.
I will say that last year I was in a first grade classroom and we didn't have like a total complete like lockdown, but it was more of like a stay in your classrooms type of thing. Like, you can still continue on with, like, teaching and stuff, but, like, you're not allowed to go in the hallways, which stinks because I don't know about you guys, but when I was in elementary school, we had, like, single stall bathrooms in every classroom. And none of the schools I've been to in Connecticut have that.
Like
All of them
Okay.
have bathrooms?
Like,
in the bathroom in the classroom.
yeah, so it had, like, the
I have
toilet
seen
or a
that.
urinal, and then, like, a sink, and then it was, like, the classroom. Like, the sink was in the classroom.
I saw that in
Dang.
one of my placements in a kindergarten, but never with anything older.
Yeah,
than
it was,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
K through 5. It was like that.
Every classroom
Yeah.
up to fifth. That's crazy. Yeah, I've
Also,
only seen them
I
in
lived in a
kindergarten
really
classrooms.
small town. Like, so my elementary school, like, had maybe, I don't know, like 100 people, like 100 students in it. So, anyways, but yeah, so in my first grade placement last year, there was not a lockdown, but like a stay in your classroom type of like real situation. It was because someone in the school was having a medical event and like someone had to call the ambulance and whatnot. But the kids were like concerned, like mind you, like early first graders, basically kindergartners at this point because it was in like September. But they were like, is someone going to try to hurt us? Like they were asking those questions. And I think that's the point where you might want to have a conversation. Like if they're asking all these questions, because you can't just let that go unaddressed. I will say in my own experience, I don't remember having lockdowns until, like drills, until second grade. But I do think, and I don't even know if we had like a conversation about it. I know my parents and my brother and I did, because it was briefly after the Sandy Hook shooting when we started having those drills, and so my parents had that conversation of like, you have to do what your teacher says, make sure you keep you and your classmates safe. And I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, but it did leave me feeling scared, but also it is a scary thing. And, you know, I eventually overcame those anxieties after a couple drills because the drills are what makes you feel more prepared, and that's why we have them too. So, I think kids are definitely tougher than what, kids are definitely tougher than you think, even the young ones. So I think a lot of times those conversations needed to happen.
Yeah, I agree.
I have something to throw in because the little kids, I think that's really fascinating that they're a lot not calm about it, I guess. But I was on the phone with my mom. My mom teaches at a middle school. I was on the phone with her. This was like last school year, I think, because they had recently had a lockdown drill for a threat happening in the community. And she told me that, like, she genuinely thought that she wasn't going to make it out because her kids were unable to be quiet during the whole, like, it wasn't advertised, it was a drill, it was a genuine, like, real lockdown, and her kids just could not, they were like 12, 13, just could not comprehend the fact, I guess, that this was real and it was going to happen. And I don't know if this is, like, has something to say with, like, how desensitized, I guess, certain kids are to violence and stuff like that. But she told me that they were talking and they were laughing and they were, like, actively trying to make noise. And she told me that she's never felt, like, so scared to be in a classroom because she knew that if something was going to happen, she wouldn't know what to do about it since it's all being brought to her classroom, that noise.
To add on to that, I had almost a similar situation my senior year of high school. Someone, as a prank, a very not funny prank, planted bullets in one of the bathrooms at my school, and it caused like a whole lockdown, shelter in place sort of drill. And I remember like we were able to like talk and stuff, but we weren't able to leave the classroom. And it was also like kind of like a keep a low profile. And it lasted like pretty much the entire day. It was a lot. We didn't know what was happening. My high school did have a shooting in 2005, I believe. So like a lot of like the teachers that were present during that shooting in 2005 were present that day. So it was a really scary moment for everyone. But there was a kid, I was in study hall, and there was a kid in my study hall who was in the back and did a Zoom interview with the news, with the local news outlet. And like we kept the news on mute on the like smart board in the classroom so we could stay updated. And I remember like the study hall monitor seeing the kid in the interview on the screen and him losing his mind. And like at the time we were all just kind of like, why is he so upset about this? Like, what the heck? But I think to Hannah's point, like we were all so desensitized to it, and we knew like there were never, obviously it was a prank, so like we never heard any sounds or like any real concern, but like to the tension, there was a lot of heaviness in the air sort of thing. And I think, yeah, we were very desensitized to it as, juniors, seniors in high school, to a point where like we weren't even taking the security measures seriously. Like him being in the like interviewing with a camera on with the news, like gives up like our location, like says that like we're not evacuated, like we're still in a classroom somewhere and that sort of thing. And it really is like, insane, all of it. Yeah.
I have something to say. It's a little bit not off topic, but my own experience. So my own experience with violence in schools was started in my freshman year of high school. I've never, in my primary and secondary in Trinidad, I never had a lot of lockdown trainings or even drills for that matter. So it was very foreign, the concept. I've always been in the know of it, just knowing about, media and stuff like that. Of, things could happen within American schools. Not saying anything about American schools, but you know what I mean. So I do think the first time it happened, it was my second or third week in my freshman year, and it was, for me at least, it was terrifying because I didn't know what was going on, and there was what Kelly said earlier. There was a bit of desensitization among some students. They didn't take it that serious. Now, thank God, it wasn't an active or a real drill, but it was so scary for the first time. And I think that experience, I thought about what it could be like for younger, students, especially like my sister at the time. She was also transitioning into elementary schools around that period, if I'm correct. So I thought about her. I was like, this is something that I don't even know what to do. I don't know what she would do. And at least now today in the present, I think that thought and that stress is on me more because in my kindergarten classroom, obviously if something happens like that, I don't know if I'm fully qualified. I hope I am to direct the class into what they should do. I know the drills and whatnot, but being that sort of, okay, even if this is not a real drill, it's that vibe and atmosphere of saying, hey, like this is something that has to be serious, even if it's not not the truth. That's not the right word, but even if it's not the full case. I do think teachers have a lot of pressure on their shoulders in that respect, but I do think it is necessary that we are all trained and capable, even if we are anxious and terrified on the inside, because that does happen. We're only human at the end of the day, but being in charge of that classroom, being in charge of other people, yeah, it does matter in showing our own emotions, our own, our own opinions toward it. I do remember that first time the teacher didn't take it that seriously either. So you can imagine me. I was in my orchestral music at that time, and I was terrified because I'm in a music room and I don't know the room, I don't know the people that much, and no one's taking it that seriously. Granted, the area I was in did have a lot of lockdown drills following that because of just, as Makai said earlier, it was in Springfield. It wasn't a impoverished area, but it had its fair share of crime and gun violence. So it was scary, but it is a reality that as teachers we do have to face and be able to put our sides, not necessarily put aside our own feelings and emotions, but to put on a strong face so that the students know that even if this is just a drill, that this is serious. It does matter. It does affect people on a day-to-day, every single day.
Hannah wanted to say something.
Oh, I thought you asked me because you didn't ask me.
No, I was gonna say about training. I don't know if you guys have gone through any of the Alice trainings.
No.
I had to for one of my placements actually. I think.
Really?
Or coaching something.
When did you
I
do
definitely
it?
went through it.
Last year in, not Seymour, what was that place called?
Oh,
Yeah.
we didn't.
It wasn't like a full training, and the teacher just kind of like told me about it as well as
Oh,
what
yeah.
they had to do.
Yeah, because
Wow.
I hear a lot of Alice mentioned, but I don't think we have that in New York State. So
Mm-hmm. Well, it wasn't. I had to do it here for where I teach dance.
Connecticut, that came in like right after Sandy Hook because it was such a local thing. I know a lot of changed, especially because like where we went to school was like 45 minutes from Sandy Hook, so a lot of precautions came from that. I don't know if Alice is directly from that or just from like school violence in general, school shootings, but yeah.
No, the only thing I had to say was that when I went through that, I think that was my freshman year of college when I had to do it. And I remember where I teach dance. I teach on a second floor. I teach at a community center in a second floor, kind of like in the corner. And I had to go in to teach the day after doing that training, and it, like, that was one of the most surreal days of my life because I walked into the room and I was like, realistically, because I know that Alice, they focus a lot on like exiting where you are or fighting back kind of thing instead of like staying put. And I got up there and I was like, there's absolutely nowhere for me to exit. And I was teaching little 6-year-old girls ballet. So I looked out the window and like a genuine thought that crossed my mind. I was like, is there gonna be a day where I have to like choose to like, I don't know, like jump out of a window or something with these children, something were to happen, because we can't go anywhere. I don't know if I would want to fight back. I don't know. It's a thing of like, I hate to have to walk into a classroom and think about how I'm going to exit with my students and get them out of the immediate threat. But I think it's unfortunate that might have to be a thought that we all have to have in wherever we enter for work.
It's definitely like horrible to think about, but it's not something you can just like overlook or ignore, especially with how like prevalent it is right now, which is like horrible to say, but it's especially as teachers of like elementary school kids or even younger in some instances. High schoolers might be able to jump out a window. 6-year-old can't. Like, they're not gonna be okay if they land because they don't know how to land. They don't know.
That's what I was thinking. Like I was looking at the trees and I was like, is there a way for you to like jump into the
That's also
tree
true,
where you
accessibility.
can have like
You have the ability to.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, you're not gonna leave. You can't leave one student behind.
Yes.
Like, that's not something that's gonna even go through your head in that situation. You're trying to get everyone out, but then it gets to the point where if you're on like a second floor kind of thing and you have 25 students, one of the students is in a wheelchair. Do you have the rest of the students leave out of a window and then you stay with the one student, or you get put in these situations where you have to make some type of decision, and it's just like really like hard to think about.
it's terrifying. Yeah.
Thank you guys for tuning in to yet another episode of Chalk and Squawk, even though this was a heavy one. Stay tuned for our next one where we're gonna lighten the mood a little bit, talk about some brain rot in our schools and how it could maybe be a benefit. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll all find out. Thank you for watching.
Well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner. Well, a bird.